The whole concept of Until Dawn, with having to find a way to survive the night that constantly gets looped back if you die, but if you die a certain amount of times then you end up becoming part of it, trapped as a monstrous creature, is a very cool idea, and I can see how the pitch to migrate it from video game to movie was greenlit. And whilst this movie took the idea and executed it in a relatively clear way, I do think there were some flaws within it. However, despite its flaws, what I will say is that there were some entertaining moments that occurred and some jump scares that did catch me off guard, which gave the film a kind of redeeming quality. So with that, let's dive into the movie, discuss the deeper meaning of it, and I'll also answer if it's worth watching. So let's get into it. Here is a review of Until Dawn and the ending explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The ending explained and the deeper meaning. There were two main things that I took away from the ending of this movie once it concluded. The first meaning that was hidden within it was that it felt like it was about facing your trauma head on, overcoming the issues that were front of mind and trying to not be afraid of what's in front of you. This was present with the main character Clover with the psychiatric issues that she had following the death of her mother, her sister going missing, and also with the group as a whole with the way that they tried to no longer fear the monsters that were coming after them. With many of the monsters in Dr. Hill's nightmarish Glore Valley residency representing the feelings and emotions that Clover was specifically expressing due to the trauma that she had and the way that she felt about herself, it felt like it was an extension of the way that she'd been feeling about losing her mother and also her sister. It was her mind personified. With her getting to the point where there was only one life left for them and her coming to the conclusion that running aimlessly away from the monsters was what was causing them to be trapped there, and instead making the decision to choose to walk into the dark hallway, which was representative of the unknown and the new mindset, with them walking off in a new direction and choosing to no longer be afraid of what was in front of them, facing the issues and the darkness head on, rather than suppressing it and being fearful of it, was what allowed them to walk outside and have that freedom. With Clover also facing Dr. Hill and being the very person that caused him to die, with him being the person that had been tormenting them throughout the entirety of their time in the house, it was almost like her taking back control and killing the demons that were inside of her. So the psychological side of her mind being personified by everything in front of her was something that I thought was quite clear to see. With her also needing to kill the monster version of her sister, the person behind the reason as to why she even ended up there, she'd now finally put to bed the search that was within her mind and accepted that in order to survive she needed to move on. Another key takeaway from this movie's ending was that it was focused on the value of togetherness and how success is greater when you work together as a group and don't turn on each other, even when the opportunity arises and you're told that the only way out would be for one of you to die. There were moments when characters had the opportunity to try and survive the night once many of them had died, such as when Alex and Clover were the only two left. And also when Abe was saying to Nina that they could try and escape and then come back for help, when in reality, it didn't seem like he was going to. We saw the group thriving when they worked together, such as when they were able to overpower and defeat the Psycho, something that they were previously unable to do. And also when Clover was able to save Megan from the Wendigo that was trying to attack her when she was locked up to the chair in the room. Even going right to the end of the movie with them each pulling each other out from the grave to safety when they saw the clear sky for the first time since being caught in the loop. They were told that there was always one person that had to die, but in reality we saw that none of them needed to, because as was present right at the start of the movie, they basically highlighted that you get through difficult times by sticking together, and that's exactly what we saw them doing. It's so rare for all of the main characters to survive the ending of a horror movie, and we saw exactly that. So it made a refreshing change for sure, and it was one of the more happier endings that can be found when playing the video game. With us seeing that Dr. Hill was killed by the water that makes you implode if you consume it in the house, we were made to believe that he was dead. However, right at the end of the movie, after the group jumped in Abe's car and got back on the road after knowing that they made it out of the time loop, we saw the CCTV screen start glitching, and the camera feed then cut to a group of people pulling up to a cabin in the snow in a car. This was the Washington Lodge, the very place where the game is set. With the whistle that Dr. Hill was known for doing in the movie being the haunting backdrop as well, it showed that he was very much still alive. This definitely sets up what could be a second movie without it relying heavily on the ending of the actual story, because I don't think the likes of Clover and Co would be back in it. We were led to believe that Dr. Hill was experimenting and utilizing horror to see what it did to his patients, using their worst fears against them and the fear of the unknown to see if they could overcome them. But what this showed us is that he also has a deep and dark connection to the death that repeated itself. Could he be the orchestrator stuck in a death loop, or is he an individual that is unkillable? My review of the movie. I thought this movie was just okay. I don't think it's anything to write home about, and I also don't think it's going to get a sequel or a prequel. I understand that the IP will probably fill seats in the cinema, but I don't think it's going to make an impact or be spoken about that much, because at its core, I don't think the movie was actually that great. I also don't think its delivery was what was kind of promised in the trailer. I even think tonally it was slightly different to what was expected. I thought some of the acting was below par and the dialogue was questionable at points. For example, I'd say the delivery of the characters Megan and Max were quite poor, and it felt like when they were speaking or acting, they were just reading it off of a page. This was something that I just couldn't get past in the slightest, and it was present throughout the entirety of the movie with them. None of the characters really felt that likable either, and in a movie when you're rooting for them to survive, liking them is paramount. This genuinely felt like a horror movie that didn't take itself too seriously, and I think because of that, there was a redeeming quality about it. The scene where Abe imploded, it was something that I didn't expect in the slightest, and it actually made me laugh out loud. It wasn't poor CGI, it wasn't comedic, it was just unexpected, and I think that's the reaction that the creators would have wanted. However, there were a few moments that I did roll my eyes at a little bit. The whole bear trap scene didn't quite make sense to me. Clover was stuck with the bear trap around her ankle, Max tried to open it and got nowhere near opening it. But then, the moment the monstrous Mel came running towards them, he opened it with ease and clamped her face in it. Make it make sense, but I'm choosing to look past it. For a horror movie that doesn't take itself too seriously, I would say there were a fair few jump scares that caught me, but I thought it was a shame that the largest one of them all was featured in the trailer. The one where it seemed like Mel was in the distance, but then a Wendigo appeared right in front of them out of the blue. The monsters definitely had the fearful factor that was needed within them, such as the Psycho, but there were some that I just wish we saw more of, like the one that towered over the treetops. In terms of the core theme of the movie, I thought it was pretty straightforward to digest, and I left the theatre feeling different to how I usually do after a horror movie, because it actually had an uplifting ending, rather than one that was bleak. So if it gets remembered for anything, it's probably going to be that. Not the monsters, not the performances, not Dr. Hill, not even the jump scares, but the fact that it's that horror movie where all of the characters survived. Now, I'll finish on a good note. I'll say that the gore in this movie is great. If you love a bloodfest of a horror movie, this is exactly that. Some of the deaths were creative and imaginative, and when that's a core part of what your movie's about, it has to be nailed, and it definitely was. So, the big question, is this movie worth a watch? To be honest, if you decide not to see it, I don't think you're going to be missing out on much at all. I hadn't played the game before, but I'm a sucker for a good horror movie, so that's what got me in there. But when comparing it to other horror movies recently, it does definitely fall short, and you're left feeling a bit shortchanged. I'd say that because it just doesn't feel quite there in terms of the story. It had good moments, good characters, and a good concept, but good doesn't quite cut it. So whilst I enjoyed it for what it was, I doubt I'll watch it again. However, like I always say though, be the true judge yourself. So, there you have it, a review of Until Dawn and the ending explained. If you want to see more movies from this year being broken down, then I've put them in the playlist below. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future videos. What did you think of this movie? Share your thoughts in the comments. As always, thanks for tuning into the video and I'll see you in the next one.